All right. Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So, congratulations on your record, first off. I just wanted to ask about what was the recording process like for that?
Well, we have a band house in Central Florida. We call it Boogie Motel South, but it's basically a big band house on 10 acres. And I have my recording set up there. I engineered the record myself. And so I have a Pro Tools set up over there, and that's where we rehearse and prepare for our concert season. And that's also where we record. So sort of a relaxing environment because, we're not in a paid studio and we just do it at our own leisure. Um, so that's it. I have my Pro Tools set up. The band sets up in the living room. Basically, the control room is the dining room, and I have some partitions up there and stuff. But that's pretty much it. But really, like a extended home studio, I guess is what you would call it. And so that's nice. So we have a large property. We don't bother any neighbors. We can go out there and hit golf balls in the front yard and go in, eat dinner, and record. Whenever the muse strikes us. So that's pretty much how we did the whole record. Yeah, we collect ideas all year long. Mostly from sound checks is where we get a lot of our instrumental ideas. And we capture them on a phone or on the sound man will record them. And then when we get together for the recording, we pick a bunch of covers that we sort of like. That's another thing we do at Soundcheck. Uh, we'll just whip out it like a Chuck Berry song, or we're really enamored with one of the songs in there by Rodney Crowell. Um, uh, so we play them. If we can do an original arrangement of songs that we love, then several of those made it to the album, and um, and that's pretty much it. We did a little bit of pre-production kind of stuff, but really we just sort of get in there. A lot of the rhythm tracks are just Scott on guitar and Roger on drums and me behind the board, and then we sort of build up the tracks. Um, and that's a lot of times we try to do a lot of full rhythm sections if we can. Rodney and Scott and Roger pretty much do a lot of the basic tracks. I'm in the control room, and then I'll add my parts later. But that's the process we use.
Okay. So this is your first album since 2016's Under the Influence, and what made you guys want to jump back into the studio for another album?
We just felt it was time. We did a live album after Under the Influence, and that was right before COVID hit. So I spent most of that COVID period mixing that live album, and it just felt like the right time. We had enough material accumulated that we started, that we thought went together. And we said, man, I think we have enough tracks for an album. I think we recorded 15 or 16 songs, and I think 12 made it to the record. Another thing that was cool is we were talking to Kim Simmons, who was Roger's old bandmate from Savoy Brown way back in the 60s. But he was a guest on our last album, Under the Influence, and it was cool for me to meet him. And I knew him a little bit from doing gigs together, but to be in the studio with him and do dueling guitars was real exciting. We asked him if he had any tracks for this, for us to listen to, and he sent us 4 demos, 3 of which ended up on the record.
Wow.
And we wanted him to come down and play, but unfortunately his health failed and we lost him, not too long after. But we're sort of blessed to have some of his last compositions on this record. So 3 of the songs on there are co-writes with Kim. Um, and Yeah, it just felt time. And then, once we had all those tracks accumulated and we said, okay, I think these are held together as a package, then Linda does all the hard work. She does the artwork and all the business side of things. And that's Roger's wife and our manager, Linda Arcello. So yeah, that was it. And obviously, I mean, we're so excited that it's doing so well. It's been on the Billboard Blues charts now for over 20 weeks in the top 10. It keeps going up and down, up and down. Every Tuesday, we're like, all right, is it still on there or not? And we're getting some airplay. We charted in England, which is unusual for us too. That's a first. And so we're real excited about the reception it's getting.
Yeah, I personally love it. I love how bluesy it sounds, as you mentioned before. Was that always something you were interested in when you were learning to play, like the blues side of music, or?
Absolutely. That was my total influence. I think, of course, during the British invasion era, Eric Clapton with Cream, all Peter Green with Fleetwood Mac, Jeff Beck group, and you see all the guitar players that played with John Mayall, all those blues guys. That's who I really stole stuff from. That's how I learned is playing those songs over and over again, on the turntable. And yeah, so that's definitely my influence is that blues rock invasion.
Right. So the band is celebrating their 50th anniversary, but for you, you're personally hitting a milestone with the band being 25 years with Foghat. How does that feel knowing it's been 25 years with them?
Well, time flies when you're having fun, I guess. That seems like a long time, but and I actually played 4 years with well, that's I guess including that, but it's been 25 years straight now, and since 1999. But I played with Lonesome Dave is how I got introduced to the Foghat family back in the mid 80s when he moved to Orlando, and I was working at a studio there called King Snake. And I had a blues band called Blue House, and Dave came to one of our shows, and we just became fast friends. And when he started wanting to tour again, he asked me to join his band. It was called Lonesome Dave's Foghat, but it was basically his solo band.
Right.
And that's I did that for 4 years, and then all the original members got back together.
Hmm.
And you see, 1992, I believe. And Dave and I had just finished a tour of Europe with Molly Hatchet, and they knew of my circumstances that, I was going to be out of a job basically. And they asked me to join Molly Hatchet, which I did for 7 years. And, and then about right around 1999, Dave called me up. Rod wanted to retire from the road, and he asked me to rejoin the band, and I've been here ever since. So 25 years, that's a big number.
Was that conversation when he left in 1999? How did that go? Was it just like a, hey, you want to join the band, or was it?
Yeah, well, I was on tour with Molly Hatchet, and I did 3 albums with him, and we were supporting an album. Um, he called me up, and he had been ill for about a year, and Foghat wasn't touring at all, and but he was in a remission from his cancer, and he called me up, and I kept in touch with him a lot over those years, and he said, Bryan, I feel like doing some playing. And I said, okay, Dave, I'll be home. I think it was in Green Bay or something. And I said, I'll be home this weekend. I'll come over. He goes, no, I want to go back out on tour. And I said, well, I'll have to quit my band. He goes, okay. So he said, I'll have Mike call you with plane tickets to New York and we'll start rehearsals. I was like, okay. He's my best friend. And I was so happy that he was healthy again. And so I gave my notice to Molly Hatchet. I actually trained my replacement for a couple weeks. I played in both bands for a while. I mean, I would rehearse in New York, fly out, do Molly Hatchet shows, and did that for a few weeks. And then I just got back with David, which was really important for me because we were so close. And we played for nearly a year. And then he got ill again and passed away. So that year was important to me to spend that time with him. And then that I that was my reintroduction into Foghat, and so me and Roger carried on.
So you guys are currently out on the road and support your new album. What is the fan reaction like when you guys start playing some of that new music from the album?
We're really excited that it's going over really well. I mean, we're getting the same kind of reaction to say driving on as we get when we play Full for the City. So, that's unusual. A lot of times, when you start, oh, here's a few songs from our new album, everyone says, okay, time to get a beer. So, but that's not the case. These ones are going over really well. And it's funny, when we recorded it, I really wanted to keep it stripped down. I mean, I was tempted to put some horns and keyboards on some of the songs, but I wanted these songs to translate to the stage. So we kept it 2 guitars, bass, and drums, and maybe some percussion. That's pretty much how the record went down, so that we could play these songs live and not have them sound stripped down. And it's been working out really good. So we're really pleased about that.
So your next show is in Illinois, which is very far from where you grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where you got your start with Wild Cherry. How did that start exactly?
Wow, that's a funny story. That Played That Funky Music, White Boy was our big hit, and that we were a rock band. The lyrics of the song are very autobiographical because we were a rock band. We were playing Zeppelin and Robin Trower and all ZZ Top, but the music scene was changing, and with that KC was out and the Bee Gees and even David Bowie with Fame, and everything was going into funk and dance music. And someone actually came up to our drummer at a big disco club that we played, said, "You better start playing some funky music, white boy." Yeah. So we laughed about it in the dressing room, and Rob, our singer, started writing the song there. We recorded it by ourselves. We went to Cleveland and recorded at a really cool studio where they did James Gang Records there, and Grand Funk recorded there. So it was a good studio. we recorded it, and a record label, picked it up. Like we had a small label called Sweet City out of Cleveland was looking for new acts, and
Hmm.
took that record to New York, and we got on Epic, and before you know it, we had a hit record. I mean, that was pretty cool. And yeah, that's pretty much it. We went from a club band into playing arenas with the Average White Band and all Earth, Wind and Fire, all these great bands. Jackson 5. We did their last some dates on their last tour. I can't think of anybody in the R&B world we didn't play with during that time. So that was real exciting for the guy. I was 20 something, maybe 22.
Did you know that when you were writing that song in the moment, did you think that it was going to be that big of a hit, or was it one of those songs that you wrote it and let's see what happens?
Well, we knew people liked it because even before we recorded it, we were playing it in our set, and it was one of those songs I think guys that don't like to dance would go, "All right, I'll try this one." Get out on the dance floor with their girls.
Right.
Well, it was a great dance song, even when people didn't, there wasn't even a record yet. So we had hopes for it, but not, number one, or the way it turned out, was a pretty big song. We wanted to get it on the radio and get it in the local jukeboxes was sort of our aim, but it really took off, and so we were surprised, but really pleased.
So talk to me about your current setup on the road. What guitars are you using? What's your setup like?
My setup is pretty plain, really. I use a diamond guitar, which is basically sort of a humbucker loaded Telecaster style. Is for my
Okay.
straight guitar, and for my open E tuning, I play a SG. Sort of a standard slide guitar. I
Mhm.
use Marshall 900s. I don't use very many pedals. I use straight amp sound, so I don't have a distortion pedal. I use a compressor on some of my slide solos and a wah-wah pedal. That's pretty much all I have on my floor. And I just like turn up the amp till it feeds back, and then that's my sound.
So what's a day in life like for you when you're out on the road and you're going city to city?
Well, we said our saying is we play for free, we get paid to travel. And so a lot of our day is up at 4 or 5 a.m., going to the airport, flying to the next city. Uh, and then when we get there, our crew sets up our gear. We do a mid-afternoon sound check. We go eat, a light dinner, and play our show. And that's pretty much day in and day out. Travel all most of the day, and check into your hotel, and sound check and show. So I call it the go everywhere, see nothing tour.
So you've been a part of a couple of studio records with Foghat now. How do you keep your ideas fresh for each record?
It's really what strikes our fancy. Roger always has a lot of input into particularly the cover songs we play. He'll say, "Hey, I want to do a Johnny Cash song, or I want to do a Chuck Berry cover." So we start accumulating those kind of ideas. And like I said, when we're on the road, we jam a lot and sound check, and those spark a lot of ideas. Our sound doesn't really change. I mean, we're still a blues rock band, and it's not broken, so no sense in changing our style. That's just the way we play. I mean, everybody came up in that blues rock genre, and that's it. We spend a little time with arranging the songs, and once we have a core idea, that's but that's it. We just try to accumulate a bunch of songs that we feel good about. And that's sort of why there's a little bit of a time lag in between releases. We're not really feeling rushed to put out an album every year like the old days. But that's it. When we accumulate a bunch of songs that we really feel strong about, and then we go about putting out a record.
Right. So on top of multiple studio records, as you mentioned before, you're part of a lot of live records as well. What's that process like? I know it's, slightly different.
It's slightly different. It all depends on the quality of the recordings in a lot of ways, and how we performed. So we're always looking and keeping a catalog of live shows, and there's a lot of video that a lot of the venues video now, so we have that kind of capture. But mostly it's performance and quality of recording, and we stockpile them, and um, we try to get it all in one show. A lot of live albums are, a couple songs from different venues. We haven't really
Right.
done one of those yet. Most of our live albums are complete concerts.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, that's I engineer it and mix it. So, for me, I go, okay, it sounds good. That's the first, test. And then how we played is the second test. And I like live albums. We do one, it seems like, every 2 or 3 years. And I like them. They're like signposts for us. I go, oh, what did we really sound like back there in '99? So there's that. And for me, it's memories. And sometimes I'll go, remember that way we used to have this long arrangement on I Just Want to Make Love? We had a big, giant intro for it. It started like at 30 seconds and ended up like 8 minutes. So because we kept adding to it. So it's nice to go back and see what we did years ago and see how the arrangements have changed and to check things. So that's what it is for me, is like signposts in the road along the career.
Do you think that, or for you personally, is there more pressure when you know you're being recorded live, or is it always kind of the same feeling?
When we start, it's in my mind, but once we start playing, I sort of forget about it. And because the more you think about it, the more mistakes you make, at least in my case. I think about it too much, I gotta get worried about it.
Right.
But, we just did it this past week. We had recorded a whole show, and
Mhm.
like I said, I thought about it for a couple minutes, and then but once you get into the flow of the show, you sort of forget that you're being
Right.
recorded.
So you mentioned a lot of the British invasion before. Who else inspired you to play guitar?
Well, that watching the Ed Sullivan Show was really, I think everybody at my age was really influenced by the Stones and the Doors, all the bands that were on the Ed Sullivan Show. I mean, it was, I think that when the Beatles played, it was such a big event. And in the old days, I mean, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have cell phones, we didn't have anything. We had like a bicycle, a stereo, and some board games. That was it. So when a new album came out, or that was a big event, and you went to your buddy's house, whoever had the best stereo had the party, and you put that new record on and read every word on the album cover. And so music was really, really central, and when I was a teenager in my life. So yeah, that's it. And I think everyone in my neighborhood, when the Beatles, hit Ed Sullivan, my cousin got a drum set, one of my buddies got a bass guitar, I got a guitar, so we were a basement garage band. And that's how it started when we were like grade school, early high school.
Right. Was there one song you remember from growing up where it was like an aha moment, like I want to do that because of that song?
The two songs I really remember working on was "You Really Got Me," by
Okay.
the Kinks, and "This Could Be the Last Time" by the Stones. I remember, working out that little lead section in there, and but they're "My Baby Does the Hanky Panky," so Louie Louie, Gloria. Those are the songs we played, in the basement.
Right. So you just mentioned before, buying the record, putting it on the turntable. Did you have a massive collection as a kid? Because I know now I have over 300 records in my
Yeah,
collection.
yeah, I'm about right there with you. I think I'm 300 or 400, and I almost gave them away. A friend of mine owns a record store, and for a
Okay.
while, you couldn't hardly give them away. They're like, okay, here, give me $1 a
Mhm.
record. But it's interesting to see the resurgence of vinyl. I mean, it's really coming back strong.
Yeah.
And my daughters, I was going to give my records away to my buddy, and my daughters were like, "No, man, I know, we want those records." So my daughter's bedroom looks like mine in 1972. Jethro Tull, Floyd, Led Zeppelin. The records are laying around. I had to pull my old. Thankfully, I'm a hoarder, so I had my old stereo still and my turntables. It's funny that some of the new receivers don't even have turntable inputs like
Hmm.
some of the new ones do now that it's popular again. But so luckily I had my old stereo. And but yeah, I'm glad to see vinyl come back. It's an analog technology that I think is pretty cool.
Right. Do you have one record where it's like if the house was burning down, I would grab this record because it just means so much to you?
Yeah, I think my first two Jeff Beck albums, Beckola and Truth. I grab those two and run. Dark Side of the Moon probably too.
Oh, that's a good. I think mine would be my original 72 Sticky Fingers and my original Electric Warrior from T-Rex. Probably I'd just
There
grab
you
those two,
go.
and if the house burned down, that was fine.
Yeah.
So you've been a professional musician for really long now. So what's one thing you knew when you first started out that you know now?
Well, I really figured out early on that it was a lot of hard work, especially in the early days in the clubs. We used to go to a club at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, you know, set up all the gear, and we were fancy, so we had the truss lighting and everything, for bars. And you wouldn't get home till 3 and 4 in the morning because you played from 10 till 2 in the morning, 4 sets usually. So I knew right away, you really had to love it to put in the effort, without any, you might have success or you might not, you never know.
Right.
Luckily, we did have some success, but I played many years in the bars before I had bands before Wild Cherry, and we
Mhm.
played several years as a club band with Wild Cherry before the hit. So that was I just kept at it. And I think a lot of my friends gave up. Guys I knew that were really talented.
Mhm.
Went into other things, businesses. A friend of mine owns actually pretty rich now, but he had a motorcycle franchise, and so a lot of people get married, fall a lot away, and sort of a battle of attrition, to keep going. Um,
Right.
but I was lucky enough to go from one band to another, with some stops in between, and I was a recording engineer. That was another interest of mine, and I did that for many years as sort of my B job. And that's it. You just got to dedicate yourself to it and um, hang in there.
Right. What's the most rewarding thing to you, at least for being a touring musician making albums?
The most rewarding thing really is that I'm able to support my family with being a musician. I mean, I think it's a little tougher in a lot of ways for young people in general, but young musicians in particular. They do have a little more access to recording. In the old days, you needed a record company to have any kind of success because making a vinyl record was expensive.
Mhm.
Recording in a studio was expensive, and then you needed distribution, manufacturing, advertising. So without a label support, you really just didn't have anything going on other than your live performance. Now you can make a record, and many people do, on a laptop and in your home studio, and get it on the internet and their YouTube, when you're done. So that
Right.
that thing is advantageous to young musicians. The income stream from the new digital recording world is not that great, unless you're
Mhm.
at the top of the pyramid. Um, but live performance is still the big money maker for most musicians, and that's, I guess, as it should be. I think musicians need to play live. I think that's why there's so many '70s bands still touring, because everyone grew up playing concerts and
Right.
improving their craft. And they were, went from the clubs to the theaters to the arenas and some to the stadiums. So, all that experience makes you, tour worthy and good performers live. So I think that's why so many classic rock bands are still out there.
Right. And what's one piece of advice you would give to upcoming musicians that are just starting out?
Learn as much as you can of various styles, practice a lot. I find, at least my personal experiences, was after maybe 4 or 5 years of playing, especially when I started playing professionally, your style sort of solidifies. So,
Right.
and you always learn new things and listen to new things, but I think learn as much as you can as a young one, because that'll just, broaden your horizon and open up a lot of different musical opportunities. You know, there's so many great guitar players out there now, young guys, and uh, the guy from Italy, Mancuso, he's fantastic. And Derek Trucks, he's not quite a young guy anymore, but I remember him. He was from around here in Central Florida, and when he was 10 or 12 years old, he could play slide like Dwayne Allman. I mean,
Right.
it was a real prodigy. So that's it. Practice and really keep your ear open for all kinds of different styles.
Right. I just wanted to get your thoughts. Do you still get that cool feeling when you first see your record like in your hands? What was that first reaction like? And now when you see it, is it still the same?
Yeah, it is. Well, the first Wild Cherry record was amazing to us. When we first, that was almost like a movie scene. When the radio played our song, we pulled the car over, got out, jumped around, like, oh my God, we're on radio. But now it's just a sense of accomplishment, when we finally, I got Sonic Mojo vinyl, and it's, cool blue or purple, and everything looks great. And for me, it just feels like a sense of, man, it's done. We did it, it's done. And then when people enjoy it and it's doing as well as this one is, you just have a little like pride of, job well done.
Right. So was there anything that I didn't ask or I didn't touch on that you want to add or?
No, man, I think we covered a lot. I just come out and see a Foghat show. I mean, we're going to be up to Mohegan Sun and up in New England. We're going to Cleveland, near Cleveland, and Illinois. We're flying into St. Louis and going about an hour north of there, I think. And but go to foghat.com and check our tour dates. They get added more all the time, and see if we're near where you are, and come on out and see a show.
Definitely. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Hey, my pleasure. Great talking to you.
Great talking to you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks. You too.
Take care.
Bye bye.